Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. We are going to be learning about prefixes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you quickly so you can kind of see what is going on. All right, so today we are talking what is a prefix. And maybe you've heard this word before, maybe you haven't, but I am going to tell you exactly what it is and how we use it. All right, so first, here's a quick agenda for us. We're going to go over our objective, materials, key terms. Then I'm going to have you guys watch as I come up with some different words and sentences. We are going to do it together, and then you guys will try. We will also be putting together a cool graphic organizer so you guys can organize all of your work into one place. All right, so the objective in this lesson is, you will be able to identify popular prefixes and decode words using your knowledge. So what this means is you are going to learn what a prefix is, and also when you see words with this prefix, you will be able to have a better understanding about what that word actually means. So the standard that this is going along with is describe how words and phrases, regular beats, alliteration, rhymes, repeated lines supply rhythm and meaning in a story, poem, or song. So prefixes go along with this standard. All right, so I am going to have you guys go ahead and grab these materials. The very first thing you need are some writing utensils. If you want to use a pencil, that's fine. If you want to get multiple colors, I have lots of colors here. I'm going to use markers. You guys can use markers or pens, colored pencils, whatever you're most comfortable with and you guys like to write with. That is just fine with me. Then I'm going to have you grab a blank piece of paper. I have like printer paper right here. This is what I will be using, but if you guys don't have printer paper, then no worries. You can use whatever kind of paper you have, lined paper, graph paper, whatever it is, no big deal. And then the final thing for you to grab is scissors. We will be using these as we create our graphic organizer with our prefixes. So, you guys will need those. So go ahead and take the opportunity to pause right here and grab those materials. Okay, awesome. Hopefully you guys have those materials and you are feeling all set to go in our lesson. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so you guys might be thinking, what is a prefix? A prefix is a group of letters added to a root word that helps to give it a new meaning. So for example, here's a sentence that you guys might hear on a daily basis. It says, I learn best when I am in a quiet space. That is saying you are learning. That is how you learn. But let's look at this next sentence. I had to relearn how to do word problems. When we see relearn, we know that that means they had to learn again, right? When we see learn, we know that that just means you had to, like, you're learning, you had to do it once. But when we see relearn, because of that R-E, we know that that means we have to learn again. So that is why it said I had to relearn how to do word problems. That means that person had to learn again how to do word problems. So that is just an example of how a word with a prefix can be used. I'm going to share my screen with you again so you guys can see another list of my examples. So I have some examples up here that are just important prefixes. These are not all the prefixes that exist. There are many, many prefixes in the world, but these are just some prefixes to know. So means again. And a way that you can remember is the word remember. That means we are remembering. We are thinking of it again. And just like we had in our last slide, when we said relearn, That means we are learning again. Can you guys think of any other words that have the prefix re? Take a second to think about it. Hopefully you guys have something. All right, so hopefully you were able to think of one. A couple good ones: remember, relearn, reply, which means to respond again, right? You are replying. There are lots and lots of words. We could go on and on all day, and it actually would be really cool if after this lesson you guys want to ask maybe an adult or your friends if they can think of words that start with these prefixes as well. Because once you start reading, after you see this information, you will realize, wow, there are so many words that have prefixes on them. And it'll help you to figure out what they mean. All right, so we looked at re. That is, again, remember. Now we have anti. Anti means against. So when you see a word that has the prefix anti, you know that that means against. So, for example, antisocial. If you say antisocial, that means you are not social. And that means you do not want to be around people. You do not want to talk to people. You are antisocial. You are against being social. So again, try and think of a word, another word that starts with anti if you guys can. Anti. Well, one word that I can think of is antifreeze. That basically just means the antifreeze is against freezing. You don't want something to freeze, so you're putting antifreeze on it. So that means you're against freezing. You can use antifreeze maybe like if snow is on your windshield or there's snow somewhere that you don't want it, you can put some antifreeze on it. So it's against freezing. All right, so let's continue on. We went through re, we went through anti. Now let's look at D. D is opposite. So if you see a word with the prefix D, the prefix D means opposite. So for example, the word defrost. Defrost. Defrost means to like thaw something out, make something not frozen anymore. So if it is frozen, you want to defrost it and turn it into the opposite, and that will give you defrost because it is turning into the opposite. Okay, so we went through re, anti, D. Now let's look at dis. D-I-S, dis. Dis means not. So one example of that is disagree. You do not agree. You disagree. So if you were to be reading a story and you saw the word disagree, maybe you didn't know what that meant, but you know what agree means and you know what the prefix dis means. So by putting those definitions together, you can think to yourself and realize that that means disagree means not agree. I do not agree. So that can be really helpful. All right, moving on. We went through re, anti, d, dis. Now we are looking at pre. Okay, pre is before. Pre means before. So an example of that is preview. Preview. You maybe have heard the word preview when you are at the movies. There are some previews on before the movie comes on. That means that you get to look at just a little bit of some of those movies before they come out. You are previewing those movies. Another word that is actually important in this lesson is prefix. Prefix. We're saying it is something that comes before, right? the prefix comes before. So in the word prefix, we have that before. So that is awesome. And then let's look at the word, let's look at the prefix non. Non. That means not. So for example, a word is nonsense. That does not make sense. Nonsense. So let's look at all of these prefixes together again and their definitions. Re, again, anti, against, de, opposite, dis, not, pre, before, and non, not. Just knowing the definitions of those prefixes will help you so much when you begin to read and see words maybe you don't know the meaning of, but if they have those prefixes, you will have a better idea of what they could mean. All right, so here are some example sentences. Up here, you can see the sentence, I do not agree with your decision. That is one way to say that sentence, but another way you can say it is, I disagree with your decision. The I do not agree and disagree, it means the same thing. But by using that prefix of dis, we can make that all into one word. So it means the same thing, but the prefix makes it mean the same as do not agree. So disagree and do not agree mean the same thing, but you just don't have to use as many words and it sounds a little bit nicer to say. I disagree with your decision. It's just fluent and helps condense things a little bit. So as we move on, let's look at the next sentence. Another sentence says, that does not make sense. Or you could say, that is nonsense. Again, it means the same thing. Nonsense is the same thing as does not make sense. But this is just a more fluent way of saying it. And that prefix makes the word sense kind of flip the definition into nonsense. That prefix makes all the difference there. So all you have to do with one of these words is just add one of these prefixes and it will change the meaning of the whole word. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen with you guys and hopefully you can just see me. And what we are going to do now is we are actually going to create a graphic organizer together. So if you want to go ahead and get your piece of paper, all right, we are going to fold it the long way, okay? Fold it the long way. Once you have it all folded, you can hold it up in the air, up. Awesome. Hopefully you guys have that all folded up and are ready to go. Okay, so today we talked about 6 important prefixes. So I am going to cut 6 rows down this graphic organizer. But before you do that, I'm not going to cut like this. I am only cutting the top piece of paper because on this bottom piece of paper, I want to be able to write and put examples. So I will show you guys, we are going to cut 6 pieces, all right? All right, go ahead and get started. I have 1, 2, awesome. 3, oh, that one was a little bit small. 4, 5, awesome. So let's count and see. You should have 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Awesome. So as you can see, our bottom piece here should stay as a whole piece, and the rest of it should be cut up into 6 rows. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to take my pen or my marker or whatever you have, and I am going to write on the very top piece, and I'm going to write our first prefix that we have. And the first one that we talked about is re. So I'm going to take off my marker cap. I'm going to take off my the cap of my marker, and I am going to write re. Re. Whoops. Kind of messed that one up a little bit, but no worries. Just do your best. Here, I'm actually going to cross that out. So, re. There you go. So you have re up at the top. Then, if you want to keep the same color marker, feel free to do that. I am going to switch colors so that I have different colors for each prefix. So first we talked about re, then we talked about anti. So I am going to write A, N, T, and I. A, N, T, I. Right there. So you can see, I'm sorry this one kind of got crossed out, but we have R, and then it's R-E for re, and then we have anti, A, N, T, I. Then we have D. And D-E. So I'm going to pick another color. I think this time I'm going to pick green. D-E. D-E. Awesome. So I got that written right there. D-E. And once you have that written, go ahead and keep using the same marker or switch it out, and we are going to write dis. D-I-S, dis. D-I-S, dis. Awesome. We only have two more left. We have pre, P-R-E. There we go, P-R-E, and non. All right, non. N-O-N-N. Awesome. Okay, I am going to let you guys take a second and just look at mine, make sure that you did it. Just kind of how mine is. Like I said, any colors are okay, but it should look like mine. Awesome. Hopefully you guys are finished, and once you guys have completed that, now what we are going to do is we are going to, for every little row, we are going to come up with examples of words with each of these prefixes. So, for example, if this is your graphic organizer and you have it at home and you're just studying your prefixes and you want to see, I wonder what are some words with the prefix re. Well, all you have to do is peel back your re and you will find words that start with re right in that row. And so it's really nice and very helpful for you, and maybe even when you are reading books, you will see a word and you're not sure what it means, but maybe it has this prefix and you remember, oh wait, maybe I wrote that in there, and you can see if it's in there. So we will go ahead and do one example for each together. So for re, I'm going to go ahead and grab my matching marker. And for re, let's talk about re. Re means again. So you can say remember. You can say remember or reply. I think I want to put relearn. So R-E-L-E-A-R-N, relearn. Relearn. Awesome. So that means to learn again. And you guys will be putting more examples in here, so don't worry if there's still a lot of empty space. It will get used. All right, so we are moving on to Auntie. I'm going to get my matching blue marker and let's talk about which word we would like to use as our example for Auntie. So before we talked about antifreeze. I think it would be cool to use a different word this time. We could say, and we also talked about antisocial. So maybe we could use the word, what could we use? We could use, this is kind of a big word maybe, but we could use the word antibacterial. And I know that sounds like a big word, but it is one that you guys will use frequently because antibacterial means that it's against bacteria. So if you guys use hand sanitizer, it's antibacterial. If you use wipes to wipe down your table, antibacterial. So let's write that together and I will show you how to write it. So it's anti, A-N-T-I, bacterial. T-E-R-I-A-L. Okay, here we are. Antibacterial. So again, I know that's a little bit of a big word, but it is something you will most likely see often because it is like hand sanitizer and wipes. You will probably see that around. So it's a good word to know. And you know it means against bacteria, against germs. All right, now let's talk about D, D-E. We have, the definition for D is opposite. And we said defrost. So let's continue on with that one and just write that as our example. Defrost. All right, defrost. Right there, you can see we have defrost. Great. Moving on to dis. Dis means not. So we talked about disagree. Disagree. We can write that as our example, or if you guys want to think of another one, maybe another word, feel free to change it up and yeah, but we can write disagree. Dis, D-I-S-A-G-R-E-E. Awesome. All right, so now we have written disagree in here. Perfect. We can close it. Let's open up the pre. Pre means before. We talked about the words preview, prefix. I think that we can use the word preview for our first example in here. So I'm going to find my pen or my marker that matches and write preview. P-R-E and then view. Awesome. Great. Okay, so there's preview. Now let's finally look at non. Non means not. So we use the word before, nonsense, and that would be a great example to write in here. N-O-N, sense, S-E-N-S-E, nonsense. All right, so as you guys can see, we have super helpful examples in here. So if we open this up, we have relearn, we close it, we can see all of our different examples for the different prefixes that we chose in this booklet. So my challenge to you guys is to go ahead and try to put some of these words in, put some more examples in on your own. So if you guys have thought of any words, maybe you want to work with a partner, maybe you can work with someone else at your house to put in some examples other than just the ones we have written in here. So go ahead and pause this now and take this chance to do that. All right, hopefully you guys have put some more examples in your graphic organizers, and I hope that that will be helpful for you as you guys continue reading and learning. I know that it's helpful for me to just make lists of those words so I can see what I know and just get the hang of these prefixes as we learn them. So the very last thing I want to go over is our objective. We said in this lesson, you will be able to identify popular prefixes and decode words using your knowledge. Hopefully you guys feel like we reached that goal. I know I did, because we learned about 6 of the absolute most important prefixes, and I feel like knowing those prefixes will help me to decode words as I continue on in my reading journey. And the great thing is that we know some examples of words to use along with those prefixes. So we already have a great start on that. So that is all for my lesson today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Keep practicing those prefixes and keep on learning. Bye-bye.